Good morning and welcome to Nasdaq Trade Talks. I'm your host, Jill Malandrino, global markets reporter at Nasdaq. Joining me at the MarketSite, we have Glen Havlichek. He is the co-founder and CEO of GLMX. We're going to focus on data as the key driver of technology in the fixed income markets. Glen, it's great to have you
nice
at
to be here.
the MarketSite with you. And a big topic for 2019, and I would even argue 2020, is transitioning from LIBOR to SOFR, and that's really going to demand greater transparency.
Sure. I mean, I think the key issue is that LIBOR affects so many different indices, so many different lives, frankly, and it's a massive transition. The challenge is that LIBOR, and as many people know, ran into afoul of issues of transparency and manipulation. So the markets, I think broadly, and certainly the regulators, are looking for an alternative which is more precise and driven more by information which can be verified. And really the only way to get to that information is through data that comes from the markets. Hence, I think the move to greater electronification, if I want to use that word, of these markets, particularly of the financing markets, the repo and securities lending markets, which underlie SOFR.
All right, and you think that data is really the key for the buy side and regulators?
Well, in Europe, for example, we have something called SFTR, Securities Financing Transaction Reporting, which is mandated by the regulators to increase transparency, because there are those who believe that repo and securities financing markets, which I agree with, are among the last to adopt electronic reporting, if you will. And they're so critical, they're really the lifeblood of the markets. They are the grease to the wheel of the financing markets, both in fixed income and frankly in equities as well. And so there needs to be a degree of transparency and of precision in that information. And I think that's why we're moving in the direction we are.
All right, now the OFR proposed a new data rule.
That's right. So the OFR, I don't know whether I could say with certainty on the heels of SFTR, but certainly it's in the air. The idea of looking into a market which is so important and which traditionally has been quite opaque. And I think that that's driving the regulatory thrust. And that regulatory thrust, but think about it for a second, fixed income markets were quiet, let's say, especially the short-term markets were very quiet for 10 years. Staffs contract, people contract, frankly, institutional knowledge contracts. And in a world where there is now greater need for that information, there has to be an outlet, and the outlet, I think, is technology.
Do you think the technology transformation is going to take some time? Because fixed income markets are huge.
Yeah. It definitely is going to take some time. I mean, keep in mind, we've been at this for a while. It feels like there's a groundswell. It feels like we're beginning to see a wave which is going to crest, but it definitely takes time. These are very important markets. I use the term lifeblood or oxygen of the markets all the time. And when you're talking about markets this large, trillions, people are not going to move on a dime. And so it takes time. And people that are sitting in seats and are not used to the electronic mechanisms which are now available to them, takes a little bit of conditioning getting used to.
All right, now where does GLMX fit into this ecosystem?
So GLMX is endeavoring to bring technology to the securities financing markets and ultimately to the broader money markets. Our job is not to change the world, but to help this transition. And we feel that the technology that we bring is easy to use, easy to adopt, provides the needs of traders, salespeople, and investors, which I think is critical, but also provides a data outlet or data output which can be valuable to all participants in the marketplace, whether they're buy side or sell side, and regulators to the extent that it's required.
All right, Glen, thank you so much. We look forward to having you
My
back
pleasure.
with updates as we work through this transition.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining me. I'm Jill Malandrino, global markets reporter at Nasdaq.